Good afternoon, and welcome to the August 8th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee agenda. So we have some new folks here today, so I usually have everybody introduce themselves. Should we just do that, or do you want to introduce first?
If it's okay, I'll introduce and welcome our new committee members, and then we can go around.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And then
Thank
if
you.
I butcher anyone's name, then they can correct me.
Okay.
So I'd like to welcome Stephen Daly and Ariadna Cheremeteff. We'll fix it. To our committee. They are the two new members that were adopted at the town board meeting last night. So welcome. I appreciate your contribution that you've already started, and look forward to working with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And so my tradition is, now that I've introduced myself, is for us to go around and do a quick introduction. So we'll start with you, Steve.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Daly. I'm an environmental lawyer here in town, and I also teach environmental law at the University of Rochester. Very excited to see what I can contribute to the committee.
Hello, Ariadna Cheremeteff. I'm an environmental consultant in Rochester, and I also am excited to be a part of the committee.
Thanks.
Pat Schichler, member of the committee.
Roy Green, committee member.
Katie Rygg, committee member.
Sarah Waterman, town staff liaison.
Kevin Berry, town board liaison.
And just for everyone's benefit, if you're speaking into a microphone, please make sure that it's pointed at your chin and that you're about 3 to 4 inches away so that PCTV will get a good recording of you.
And you should be able to tell because you can kind of hear yourself.
Just a little.
Okay, good. So missing on our team now is Daniel Moore. He submitted his resignation recently and effective yesterday. He is no longer a member of our committee. We will definitely miss his passion and his experience on the committee. He is pursuing some educational things at a different university, and so that's taking his time away from us. But we appreciate him, more specifically, taking on his college life and this committee, as well as the conservation board before this committee for a couple of years. So, okay, moving on. The next item is the review and approval of the minutes of the July 11th meeting. Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you. And are there any comments or corrections? Okay, in that case, all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. The next item is the standing report from Monroe County Environmental Management Council. That is a organization that we get to be part of by, each town has a representative. I happen to be representing the town. There is no meeting from the previous month. Our next meeting is September 18th. And the reason I'm saying this specifically is because there is a potential that I will not be able to make that meeting. So if somebody would be interested in attending that, check your calendar, September 18th at 4 p.m. They meet at the Monroe County Fleet Center, which makes it extremely easy to take your Eco Park items over with you and drop them off before the meeting. And the September meeting is what we call a roundtable meeting. So I'll be collecting things that we want to share about our successes and challenges in Penfield from our committee. So that'll be what that will be. So let me know if you do want to be my backup, or even if you just want to be a second in case I can make that meeting. Any questions on that? Okay, good. Okay, moving on to our required items. The first one is town development projects.
I can lead into that. So at our last meeting, we discussed that the committee would be reviewing 1978 State Road. And I have pulled up in front of you the letter that, or the report that was put together by Katie and Pat as they were assigned review of this project. So this letter, I don't recall if this was sent out to everyone.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Was this letter sent out to everyone? I don't, okay. So this letter was
Yes,
sent
it
out
was,
ahead of time.
Yes.
and a couple small reviews or edits were made by town staff. Would Katie and Pat like to share the generalities of the project and what the conclusion was?
Sure. First of all, I would just like to say that on the agenda, and I have noticed it come up other spots, it's Sirianni with one R, not two, in case there's anything else that happens to come up like that.
I can check the spelling of their last name.
I
and-
did on the application, and
Is it one R or two?
it is one R.
I will make that correction and make sure that any of the documents we are putting forth have the correct spelling.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll start off with Katie and I went to review this property. I'm just going to get this up on my,
Can you make it a little bigger?
yeah,
for
because
ours
I'm
on
having
your
trouble
screen?
seeing that one.
Thanks.
The biggest thing when we went there, well, let me start out with the background, is that the owner wants to subdivide land at 978 State Road and proposes building 2 single-family residential homes. And so the report has the general location. It's the north side of State Road and east of Shoecraft Road. And within this is a woodland EPOD. 4.7 acres of the 5.85 acre lot is identified as a woodland EPOD. The biggest thing that we found when we went, and I was telling Katie, I said, this is not normally like this. We could not find access point more than a few feet into the property, and certainly not into the center of the property. And all my years on the former Conservation Board, I do not recall any time not being able to find some way in. We were literally faced with, and as tall as Katie, who is taller than I, vegetation that wasn't like, oh, I can get this little path in, and it really wasn't accessible. And that's one of the first things. So we could, our report is written based on the maps, the engineering sheets that were provided, and also, what we could see. And we did try several access points. Feel free to jump in anytime you want to, so.
Well, you're doing great. And I just want to say that this is my first time evaluating a property, and I really just enjoyed the process. And I thought, Pat, you did a great job mentoring. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And you were a great job, and very, very intrepid, trying to find her way through, along with I, so. Anyhow. The big thing is that you would, there's the level of disturbance their town code allows for a 10% level of disturbance within a woodland EPOD. And this would be within that. They estimate that it's 8.5%.
It would be under 10%.
Under it. Well, I mean, within the limit, so under the 10%.
And with that, that would mean that it would not need remediation.
Yes, okay. So we basically, just our observations were that it, the undergrowth and as far as trees went, we really didn't detect a large amount, from our vantage point. There were, a few, but not a lot of large trees with the 8-foot DBH. And we're suspecting that that huge amount of undergrowth is indicative of a very small tree canopy, or not a dense tree canopy. I'm not sure which way to phrase that.
The latter would be correct.
Okay. So a lot of the trees were dead or dying, and Katie, how did you call one of them with the vines swirling up?
Oh, the snags?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was teaching me too, that was a new term for me. And so, let's see, what else did I have to say?
I guess importantly, if a more comprehensive review is to, we really had to guess as to where the property owner was planning to,
Actually construct
the building. We had to make guesses, and so if a more comprehensive review of the property is a goal, we would need more information and be able to actually access the property.
So, for your information, generally when there's small subdivisions like this for single-family homes, it's less likely that the developer will start clearing land or clearing brush and those kinds of things, providing more access until they get an approval. When it's more like a large subdivision like Swellsbrook or
Many that
plenty of-
I've seen
yeah, or
before.
basically like 5 to 10 houses or more, it's more likely that they would cut a path in to kind of have a better assessment themselves of the land. And the documents that you were provided, the site plans, those included, it's more of an aerial survey rather than like an official survey. So the engineers will create that by looking at aerials and mapping based on that, like where the edges of the woods are, where EPODs are based on town EPOD maps, those types of things. So that's likely why it was more difficult for you to access those parts of the property.
Yeah, and usually our reports would have said, oh, there was a drive, or there was already cutting and dozing and things observed, and other than a small drive off of State Road, I believe. Actually, not a drive, just a spot to put maybe 1.5 cars.
Just an access point.
So,
That was it. So,
question on this.
yes.
Sure.
Obviously, I didn't look at the plans, and you guys did, but it's 2 single-family homes. It must be really small homes with no yards.
They are based on the plans.
Okay.
There's not a lot of yard around them, but I believe it was Lot 2. I don't know if you were able to bring the plans up now. Or I know we don't have Matt today. I'm sorry, Sarah.
No, it's okay. It'll just take a second to find.
So in the days before we had the technology and putting things on the screens, we would lay out these big papers and all pour over that, literally get out of our seats and pour over them. And I don't know if you want to pass this down.
I'm about to pull up the map anyway.
I'm aging myself when I say the
I think
days
it was
before all
really
this
more that the
overhead.
tree cover was not impacting the first property as much as the second, or the
Yes.
first sub,
Lot 2 is the one with the woodland.
with the woodland.
Yeah, so there's an existing house, and then there's a new house that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're proposing two new.
2 little
So
houses, yeah.
lot 1 would have more of a backyard. Lot 2, it's a very limited scope for disturbance area. A note that I know the engineering department has provided is to ensure constructability within the limits of disturbance and expand the limits of disturbance if necessary.
We,
on the plans.
but it appears that Lot 2, I'm not sure how much they're selling with the house, because Lot 2 is huge, and if you consider, well, all the rest is theirs as well, I don't know. Then it would be a huge yard, just not disturbed.
Based on the plan, if you look at the drawing here, I'm going along the proposed property line. So it is a fair size parcel. It's 4.843 acres. That would remain as part of Lot 2. As part of Lot 1, 1.004 acres approximately would be part of Lot 1. And then the remnants would be back in this portion.
Okay, I'm good.
So the house proposed construction is proposed in such a way that it will leave most of Lot 2 open. So that's, I think we like that idea. And our final conclusion was that, as long as, and I think you just stated that already, Sarah, was that as long as they stay within the limits of what they've set forth, that it would comply with the town's EPOD regulations.
Without reforestation or reforesting efforts.
Right.
Yep. And then in the summary, I know that Matt added the section in the code that's applicable.
Yes, he put that in. Thank you.
Um,
There was a question, and I did not have the answer to that. A person asked, was there a Phase 1 completed?
That was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't recall
That-
anything before this, but
Later, right?
I'm curious if it was an orchard or any kind of agricultural space before it's become a wooded area.
I am not aware of that. If, I know that in the application documents, they're required to complete a short EAF. So I think that would have helped determine if a Phase 1 needed to be completed. And generally, the planning board is who would designate if a Phase 1 has to be completed.
Okay.
So generally, that doesn't end up falling under this committee's jurisdiction.
we didn't see any evidence of fruit trees or, my house is actually built on a former apple orchard, and we still have a couple of the ancient apple trees, so I'm familiar, somewhat with what that,
Metals, arsenic, pesticides.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that correlation that I was curious.
Yeah.
so we didn't see anything.
So then, the next step in this process would be for the committee to agree or disagree to pass this letter as written on to the planning board.
Okay.
So if a motion
So
can be
can we
made.
have a motion to approve this letter as written?
I'll motion it to approve as written.
Okay, and I need a second?
Can I just ask one question? I'm
Nope,
so-
not
Yeah.
till
Oh,
you
I'm
get the
sorry. I
second.
don't know the
It's
procedure.
new, feel free.
Yeah.
You want a second?
Not yet.
Okay.
I
Oh,
didn't feel, are we allowed to second our own
Sure.
written? Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, okay, now, are there any questions or comments, or?
Yes, so Pat and Katie, to the extent you weren't able to actually access the area of disturbance to observe, do you feel like you had adequate information based on your site visit to make this recommendation?
I do myself, only because all we would be doing if we entered further, we saw that the land was flat, there wasn't any standing water, and, it already is not, it is not a steep slopes. All we would be doing is trying to count trees, and generally, even when you do have access, you aren't able to count all the trees. There's been some reports that we've sent back and say, gee, we would like a tree inventory, and we would have, but, so I think from what we saw, I feel, I don't want to speak for Katie, so I'll let her speak for herself.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. The vegetation was really tall, but we're evaluating the really well-established trees, and you could see that over
When
there.
you're looking back over the vegetation, you can see trees that appear, this is a tree, this is a big tree, this is still growing, versus all these felled limbs, all these gnats that are growing or not growing, more or less, and that these trees that we said were the 8 or more dBH, which is relative to the tree code, is that they were few and far between.
And with it being only
Great.
10% or under the 10%.
Under the 10%.
Which is kind of a very good level for them to be at from the EPOD code. Okay, what else you got?
No, makes sense. I appreciate
Okay.
the explanation. Thank you.
Then would you like to hold a vote?
Yes, we're ready. Can we have a vote on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed? opposed?
Then Matt and I will pass that on to the planning board. It will likely be reviewed between now and their next meeting, the next meeting after tonight, as they have a public hearing tonight.
Okay.
In regard to Ari's comment about, the background behind asking if it was an orchard was for pesticides and metal testing, when there's homes built, is there soil testing required or perk tests or anything like that?
So perk tests are only required if septic systems are going in.
Oh, okay.
Because that's more how that would benefit them to know that. Generally, there's not soil testing unless there's information that basically says there was likely something there before that would be concerning. I know that when the Arbors development, which is the corner of 250 and Atlantic, was in the review process, they knew that there were orchards there previously, so they did do soil testing as part of their application. But that's, like I said, generally if there's knowledge of that pre-existing condition, that's where it would be considered.
Okay. So moving on to our next agenda item is the request from the town board.
There are no further requests from the town board right now that are not part of old business.
Okay, thank you. Clean energy community actions.
Just the general update is that we're continuing to implement projects that we've received the grants for.
Okay, so we get to move on to old business. The first one is the CFA Support Letters.
So previously, town staff requested that this committee provide support letters for the MS4 mapping grant and the Climate Smart Communities grant. The committee did provide applicable letters directed to our town supervisor. I signed those on behalf of the committee as agreed previously, and those were submitted at the end of July in their applicable applications. We won't find out if we get a consolidated funding application grant until the end of this year, beginning of next year. And the town did apply for 3 different grants. That's, again, the New York State DEC MS4 mapping grant, the Climate Smart Communities grant, and the Empire State Development grant.
Okay, very busy grant season. So our letters actually become part of the submission.
Yes, they're part of the application.
Okay,
Yep. They go together with any other letters of support, which for all of our applications, we had multiple.
okay, good to know. Okay, so then that takes us to the Climate Smart Communities letter. That's what you just mentioned, or is that's Roy's letter?
This is Roy's letter.
Okay, Roy's letter, Climate Smart Communities letter.
And I say
Our
Roy's letter
It's
as in.
it's the one that
as in
Roy
the letter
drafted
that-
on our
yes,
behalf.
Roy drafted on our behalf.
Yes.
And just for reference, for everyone, once the committee approves this letter, I or Matt will send it to the town board on behalf of the committee. So one of our signatures ends up at the bottom of it, just so you're aware. So I'm gonna scroll down past the intro portion to kind of the meat
Could I
of it.
just go with a correction on the top in terms of the from? It's Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee?
Yep, I fixed that.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm looking at the old one was
Oh.
on my email, sorry.
Sorry. So this is the one that is in the EECC drive
Okay.
on Google. So yes, there was a typo. Our committee's name is Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. So that was updated. Going through, if you're okay with it, we'll just go comment by comment.
I appreciate that,
Does
thank you.
that work for
That
everyone?
works.
Would you like me to read the comments, or do you read them briefly and someone can acknowledge when they're ready to move forward?
You want me to read that? Or-
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, that paragraph that you're in right there.
Can you
and the
go
next-
bigger still?
The
Oh,
next one down.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, I truthfully just don't use Google Drive very often.
100% next to the little painter icon. If you go to
Wonderful, thank
125.
you. Um,
Okay, so where it's highlighted, I was hoping to see something about adaptation in addition to decarbonization mitigation, or it kind of is a little bit, it's mentioned in the next paragraph, enhancing our community's resilience. And so maybe combining those two, that's what the nature of the comment is.
So I'm going to just go through something before we get into detail on all of this. We have briefly talked at this committee that the town is pursuing a climate action adaptation plan. When reviewing this letter, please consider that the town has already worked towards allocating funding. That includes the Climate Smart Communities grant, as well as some within the budget for next year that has not yet been approved, but is in the proposed budget.
So is that
so-
something that, like, should be the very second paragraph? Like, if you go up, just to kind of put it in the front here is to talk about that, like where he says recognize the values, to say, that we acknowledge the work that's already been done on.
It may be beneficial. I'm bringing that up specifically so that as we're going through this, you can consider there are steps, a lot of steps that are in this letter that the town is already pursuing and are already goals of the comprehensive plan. So generally, it's not necessary to recommend to the town board to act on goals that they've already approved. Generally, when you're asking them to take action, you should be asking them to take action that they're not already going to do, or action that furthers one of their current goals, and then you refer to that goal as something that they've already looked to move forward with. So I did not go through the letter to the point of like, I'm going to start changing everything in that aspect, but I want that to be considered because I didn't feel it was fair for me to just start like whole world editing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And just for a little context, I try to
Sure.
make it not specific in the point of detailing every specific action the town was already doing, because they're doing a lot of great things, but I purposely left that out. Only because I think it's important in the context of what we're offering as an alternative to the climate smart communities is this comprehensive thinking around sustainability, decarbonization, mitigation, adaptation. I'm okay with that word as well.
And something that should be considered is if you as a committee want a decarbonization and mitigation adaptation plan to be part of the climate action plan or be separate from it. Generally, those things can be included, but maybe for some reason, committee members feel that it should be a separate plan. And that I'm kind of leaving to you to make that determination. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I don't want to put words in your mouths. That's not my position here.
Yeah, understood. And as you read through, and maybe everybody's already read it, but I try to hit the levers and recognize that we're already doing some of these things, like you're already doing LED lighting, but there is more that could be done. So I'm just saying, continue those efforts, right? So we're
Yeah.
doing renewable energy. We have the program where people can participate in renewable energy for residential, but there's more that could be done. You're already updating the code, but there's more that could be done, right? So I
Yeah.
don't want to say like everything, like we've addressed this and we're done. I'm going to say we're doing great things. We just need to do more.
Oh, I think that's great. And I think that the letter was very thorough and to the point. I just wanted you to have this extra consideration when reviewing it.
Sure.
I don't know if going through these comments, we're going to be ready to send it to the town board after this meeting. We might need a little more time, which I know we hate delaying in some of these things. But I wanted you to have that information. And yes, all of the staff that has gone through this letter has agreed that it's very thorough and it's well written, just to be clear.
And I would just,
ahead.
sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting, Sarah, but I mean, to me, I think first of all, I'm stepping into this one. I know that I don't have a lot of perspective on how we got
jump
to
right
this.
in.
The best way to do
But,
it.
That's the way to do it.
But I feel like this letter could be much more forceful if it's targeted to actions that the town is maybe not taking at this time. Because right now, I feel like if they get this letter, they'll be like, well, we're doing all this other stuff that's not acknowledged in the letter, and so might not put as much stock into what we say. But if we say, hey, we know you're doing this, but you could also be doing this and this, I think that might be a much clearer message, and also perhaps something that could ultimately be really useful to the town board.
What specifically are you thinking needs to be included?
I don't. I would have to analyze the scope of the, is it the adaptation plan?
The scope of a climate action plan?
Right, the climate action plan.
So currently, it's in the earliest phases of the town has agreed that they'd like that as a goal as part of the comprehensive plan, and town staff has started to try to get funding. So there's not a scoping document yet for it. Really, that would be the next step after getting funding.
Well, to me, that sounds like having input on what that document looks like could make a lot of sense. And also, the mention of the 2023 comprehensive plan, I looked at that document again, just like this afternoon. Like, I think that there's some steps in there, but it wasn't clear, at least from me and reading the comprehensive plan, of, to the extent that things are ongoing, what are they doing? So I think evaluating what's being done right now, in addition to what we have in the letter, could make it more pointed, I guess, is what I would suggest.
But I sort of think that this letter was more giving a direction or our thoughts on which way to proceed, not necessarily getting into the nitty-gritty of their plan, but more saying we do not favor pursuing the CSC at this time, and that I'm not discounting your suggestions, but saying that they're beyond the scope of what we had set out to do and what Roy was charged with in drafting this.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really important point, which is if the message is we're not going to move forward with CSC, then
That's the message.
that's
Yes.
the message. And to me, we could also say we're evaluating these other things that you've identified in the letter.
Well, we're recommending the town evaluate those other things, and they already are doing some of those things. But the point was not to be so prescriptive that it details, like, because we haven't looked at it enough that we could come up and say, the town needs to do these 14 items in this order, and it's gonna cost this much to do it. We're not there yet. And we're saying, though, the town should have some concrete goals and have some concrete commitments that will address climate issues, decarbonization specifically, but first starting with tracking, because we don't even do that yet. But then also coming up with an idea over the next course of our town's history, whether that's 2040, 2050, whatever it is, what we want to accomplish. And right now, there's no stakes in the ground. And so this letter is saying, let's put some stakes in the ground. Let's have the town, recommend to the town to do that. And we'll help do it. Obviously, we'll come up with recommendations on certain things, but we're just saying this is where we want to head.
And I think
know
it's
that-
all,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I think it's also, okay, we're recommending to not pursue the CSC, but we're not leaving it at that. Don't pursue CSC, but do this. And so that's why that part's added in.
And I
Sorry,
think,
Cynette.
I think what I liked about the letter was, as I read through the items, was I've seen traction on a large number of these already. And so I think it's good, to me, I read it and said, okay, Penfield, if you read this, those of you that have been working on this will recognize that we believe you are on the right track. And what these are then are achievable recommendations. So it's just kind of almost like an alignment tool. Like we know that you're working on this, then this fits with this. And so take that credit and then push it a little further. A little bit like what you had mentioned is keep moving forward. So I do believe that it would be good to put that in there, is that we do recognize the amount of efforts that are ongoing. And that this, in a way, is actually aligning with a lot of that.
I have a question.
Please.
And I know I'm jumping into it when
Yep.
the letter's already prepared, but why is Penfield not pursuing the CSC?
I can do that.
Thanks.
Okay, so this has been like 4 meetings worth of discussions. So in
And
a
years.
nutshell, we cannot come up with a business case for recommending that that take place. The town is doing a lot of things, and there's a lot of benefits from becoming a climate-smart community, but there's not enough to push the amount of work that's needed to make that happen.
And the financial backing by the town to make that happen. Whereas that money can be allocated into items like listed in this document.
We're also able to access all of the grants in the climate smart communities without being a climate smart community. And so that was a really important point.
Yeah.
And we are
No, you're right.
pursuing those grants?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's actually one of
Yes.
them is the CFA grant for climate smart communities.
Okay, great. I love
Yeah.
it.
And I feel like to me, I think now understanding the context of this letter, which is that, we're not pursuing CSC now, but I think it's important, and I think it's laid out in the letter, how these issues are still really critical to the committee, and I think it's important for the committee to be on record on that. So, yeah, I agree ultimately with saying some of the things that that the town is currently doing, but this makes sense to me as far as the overall approach.
Okay. Then if you are all comfortable right now, I think we can continue through the comments. Katie reviewed the first one on decarbonization, mitigation, and adaptation plan. It sounds like that is being reasonably considered as adding adaptation and/or climate action plan to that.
I would almost just do the adaptation
Yeah, put
at
it in
that,
there.
in what's currently highlighted, add that word adaptation in there.
And for your reference, normally at these meetings, Matt will be typing everything fervently on the computer as I speak. I'm not going to do that today because I will not speak correctly if I do. So Matt and I can thankfully go through the recording later and make updates as such. And if Roy would like to continue updating this based on the comments at this meeting, I would also appreciate that, but we can talk about that offline if you'd like.
I don't know if I'm going to have time, but
That's completely fine.
Yeah.
We can use staff time. So continuing on to Matt Prinzing's comment, many of the actions listed in this are already listed in the 2023 comprehensive plan, specifically under Chapter 5 implementation. At the very least, he thinks that this letter should acknowledge that. I was in agreement and wanted to acknowledge what we've already discussed of the town is already taking steps to move forward with a climate action plan starting next year. And generally, the goal is to include decarbonization and mitigation as part of this plan, as well as, and I didn't write it in, but as well as greenhouse gas inventories, both municipally and community-wide, just for your reference.
Okay.
And then Stephen added that he agreed that it should reference that. So I think that that's something reasonable that can be added unless there's any disagreement.
No, and I think I would say that potentially an appropriate place to do that is at the end of that paragraph that says, starts with our recommendation is to focus
Right here?
in there, and to say that we recognize that much of this is already included in the comprehensive plan.
Great. Continuing on, Katie corrected our spacing, thank you. And said we should also pilot community geothermal. Could you expand on that a little, please?
Well, I'm really excited about community geothermal, and there are places it's being piloted in this area. I think we should be thinking about, we need as many buildings as possible to be on geothermal, and doing it because we need that energy reduction.
For anyone without background knowledge on community geothermal, can you just give a quick explanation?
I guess the idea is that you have a lot of buildings all linked on the same geothermal network system through the tubes kind of connect the heating system up through homes, through grocery stores, through
Across adjacent parcels?
across adjacent parcels. Thank you. That's a great term. Thank you. And the idea is that, grocery stores need more cooling. At the same time, these homes need more heating. And so it just reduces overall energy usage if you band all these things together. It's also a great use of our pipe unions skills set. And I just think, there are some really exciting pilot projects going on across the country. There's one in Framingham I was reading about, and I think Rochester has one going. So I would like Penfield to look at this.
Yeah, I see no reason why you can't add in renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and geothermal. I mean, there's all
I know,
the
there's
kinds
so
of
many,
alternative-
there's so many things,
Yeah.
right?
There's
This is my
so
wish
many.
list in my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Were there any questions or comments further on the geothermal comment?
So I had seen battery storage. I mean, do you want battery storage systems in there as well? Or, I mean, I think listing 3 of the renewable energy sources
It
and
might
batteries
be-
is really either taking advantage of solar, wind, or geothermal.
It might be
as a-
applicable to just put in et cetera.
Et cetera?
Just
That works. That works.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah,
I like that.
that's why I kept it to 2, just such
Yeah.
as wind, solar, wind.
Yeah.
I know there's
Just as
hundreds.
examples.
Yeah.
So then Ari's comment, how do we track progress? What metrics will capture personal home renewable use? Will it require a permit from the town?
I saw it later then, that there are permits required for solar and things, for residential.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
that makes sense. But is
and-
there, and maybe mention that this climate adaptation action plan is being formed, and in that we'll create like tracking methods or something, just something general to that. Just so
Also-
people can see their progress in the town, like from year to year, right?
What do you mean by their progress? Like
So
how
we'll
many
see
homes are
this
using renewable?
energy adaptation, but how do we know it's
Oh.
working in the town of Penfield?
So that
Okay.
might be down under the communication. What have we?
I think that would be
Regular
under
updates is
communication.
actually
Yeah.
there.
So with that, the way to track progress would be through our building department with permitting. Because all of these items would require a permit, as the code currently exists, what's allowed, and as the code is proposed for other renewable energy systems.
Yeah.
So if we could track it through the building department, then potentially our communications director could work with that information to ideally maybe create a dashboard on the town website or something like that.
Yeah, let the town know so they could see,
Yep.
so everyone
Yeah.
gets,
Let the residents know.
excited about it and look what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that is already captured down in improving communications down at the bottom.
And I really like in that sentence I added at the end there, creating incentives for residents and businesses to adopt their own, which I think there's more that could be done in the town, so
Yeah.
that will help track.
Great. Continuing on. Katie's comment is biodiverse or ecologically rich.
I think biodiverse is at least tense correct.
Okay, so it
Yeah,
should
that's
be,
what I was going.
instead of biodiversity areas, it should be biodiverse areas, you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. That's okay, we can fix that.
Or
Yeah,
areas
random
of
nature.
areas of biodiversity would work, but yeah.
Oh, I thought I turned that off. We can fix it so it's grammatically correct. Then Pat's comment, should this verb keep the same tense as others in the sentence, reducing in the same vein as managing? And yes, I think that's appropriate.
I saw it.
It's fine, yeah.
Yep. Katie wanted us to add reuse. I think that's reasonable.
It's reasonable, yeah.
Ari's comment, this would require county, eco park, and private waste collector support and initiatives due to the lack of municipal waste collection in our town. Also, recycling is based on economic need for select materials. Eco Park recycles very little of the plastics that enter the facility currently. Composting would need to be a separate entity or be subbed out to an organization such as Clean Earth.
The fun part about this is we don't have to worry about the solutions.
I know.
You're worried about the how.
I
and
just-
I wanna be worried about the what.
I was digging into it a little too much, looking at it now, but yeah, just considerations when we're posting
Yes.
just general statements.
Yes.
I watch my garbage guys dump all my recycling into that
Yeah.
full-on garbage.
I don't
So-
think they really are. Are
Well,
they- you
Oh,
sure?
yeah, it's one truck.
So
They'll
be
dump
aware
both of
that
them
some
in.
of the garbage companies or waste companies in the area actually have trucks that manage both recycling and waste. So I don't know who you specifically have, but I know mine puts them both in the same truck, but they're separate cavities.
It's the same back unit, and.
That's
yeah,
too bad.
it's-
Yeah.
Pick another one.
I'm going to, yeah. This is my first year with them, so.
Oh,
I have a year contract.
Yeah. So that is an important item of note. Katie says, add paragraph, include adaptation measures, possibly number 8, another item, or separate section, assess climate vulnerabilities, plan for adaptation measures.
Oh, yeah, I was just, if we do include adaptation, those were just some ideas about how we could approach it.
Great. So since we are considering adding adaptation, I think it's reasonable to add an 8th item in this section of the letter.
Agreed.
I agree.
Great, thank you. Pat's comment, could we rephrase the wording of hold the town accountable, perhaps more along the lines of demonstrate the town's accountability?
That's a good one, Pat.
Yeah, especially coming from the staff side. Yep.
I used to be a boss.
Do you want us to call you the boss from now on?
No, well, I used to be referred to as she who must be obeyed, but, so, every now and then, those tendencies come
Before
out.
HR.
No, it's,
That's great. So that's agreed.
Yes.
Then-
It might tweak.
and tell
the-
Matt to leave that out of the notes when he
Yes.
does,
Yeah.
types the minutes
So-
up. I know he gets verbatim on everything.
So in for reference, generally on these letters, if we can get the meat and potatoes of the letter through this committee, then Matt and I will generally wordsmith it so
Okay.
that it is kind and professional, without any very firm directives. I think you did a great job.
Oh,
I
he
already
did.
said that.
It's the
just-
perspective, I guess.
So as a staff
so you
member,
wrote 3,000 words, and that's the only
we covered
one.
it,
That's
yes.
the
I know.
only one that we're dissing.
Wasn't kind enough.
So I'm saying we do this with all of the letters. We even do it internally with each other's letters sometimes, just to make sure that the voice of the letter is appropriate for the person or group we are sending it to. So it is not that anyone did anything wrong in the writing
No.
of this. It is just that we always review letters that we're sending on behalf of anybody for that voice.
Thank you.
Don't worry, I'm not offended.
Thank you. Katie said, and business organizations, just so it's clear that it's not residents as the only stakeholder.
I like that.
Yeah.
That
I
was a very
agree.
good recommendation.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then in this second to last paragraph, Katie said, should we make mention of UN, New York, and or Monroe County goals in emissions reductions and or land conservation? We should discuss partnering with our neighbors, floods ignore town lines, and regional efforts, question mark. So I can address the second part of that quickly in that every municipality in this area has a floodplains manager. And that is something that crosses community lines. For the first section, I'm going to open it to the committee to discuss if you would like to reference any other entities and or groups in this letter.
So my feel is, I think we need to have this letter address what Penfield can do and can control. So I do agree that if we mention other goals, that's not an unreasonable thing to do, but I think we really want to keep the focus on what we want the town of Penfield to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for example, are wonderful. And, you know, a lot of companies align behind them. I don't think there's any advantage or disadvantage to doing that per se. So I think from the purpose of this letter, I think it's just fine not referencing them.
I guess, you know, we say our environmental and sustainability goals. I would just like to have some markers that we are working towards. And if we say, you know, 40% reduction by X date is not reasonable for Penfield, then what is? You know what I mean? So,
Do you mean we, as in the
Oh.
town, is working towards?
yes.
Um,
Oh, right.
that's
I
typically
want to
detailed
I
in
want to
a
make sure
climate
we're
action
differentiating
plan.
between the committee and the town.
Yeah, who is
So-
R, I guess is the question.
Yes.
Who is that
The-
R?
The town,
town.
for reference, as we've discussed, has implementation goals as part of the 2023 comprehensive plan. So if you want to reference any of the goals that are currently part of the towns, that would be where you would most likely reference it from. If you are looking for a line in the sand, some decarbonization effort by 2040 or something like that, then that, at this time, generally, you would probably look towards the state goals and reference that. So it just depends what you're looking for.
Because we're not, you know, as a climate smart community, you kind of join the brotherhood, the sisterhood of towns that are committed to supporting the state's goals of decarbonization. And I would just like to see something
Sure.
kind of like concrete, like a goal, like numbers that we're working towards. I think,
Metrics.
So,
I
so
love that.
perhaps when the beginning of goals and public commitment, when you say the town make clear and measurable decarbonization mitigation goals, and make those goals public, and we might say that it would be appropriate or, you know, somehow aligning with state and county goals would be reasonable to say.
that'd be great.
That sounds good.
And it's not like they're not going to do that anyway,
Right.
you know, because I'm sure that the first thing that when you need to set a goal, you look at and go, is there a required goal? Is there something that somebody tells us we have to meet? Oh, let's go for that one.
Well, you know, part of the climate smart communities, part of the advantage was that there was something to point to say that, you know, we're a climate smart community, and if we're not going to have that, then.
So we are a clean energy community, and realistically, both of those communities align in that they are there as part of, like, as subsets of NYSERDA to move towards New York State's energy reduction goals. So we are part of a community that could be used in the terms that you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree, it's great to have goals, and if you scroll up, that's the whole point of establishing, you know, goals and public commitments, right? Like, we don't have those currently, but we could create them, and that's what we're saying we should do, is create them.
And that can be part of both a climate action plan as well as a decarbonization and mitigation
Exactly.
plan and goals.
And there, that's where you would align with, you know, the state and the
Ideally.
world, essentially,
Yeah.
who's trended to be net zero by 2050, essentially.
Yep. So there's no further formal comments on this letter. So I will remind you, we'll change the ending. Instead of kind regards, it'll be on, thank you for your consideration on behalf of EECC, and have either Matt's or my name on it.
Sarah, I have one more, and I didn't
Please.
put it, I guess my comment from above where it says,
Yeah.
community engagement, hosting workshops, town halls, and other forums to gather input and feedback from residents, ensuring the plans.
Did I miss that comment?
And then regular updates, maybe just something more, a comment about, you know, publishing metrics in the community based on initiatives year to year, or something like that. Like, this year, we had 20% solar use or installation, and then last year it was this, so every year it's, people can see it's increasing, or it's,
Okay.
and helping the, you know, the grid regenerate and not use fossil fuels.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work determining what those metrics could be, but I agree, like, number of EV charging stations available to the public, for example, or per capita.
Right.
You know, those types of things would be great to publish.
Yeah.
Because we, and I know when Cynette talked about all the meetings that we had discussing this, is that if, you know, one of the things that Daniel had wanted us to pursue CSC for is that we could point at, we have this. And so we had said, barring that we're not supporting the CSC, we are supporting communication and being able to point at, we did this.
And to
So-
be clear, we're not formally becoming a designated climate smart community. That
Right.
does not mean that we're not pursuing
Right.
actions that are part of climate smart community.
But
Those
to-
are two different
The
things.
importance
Yes,
is
but
gonna
we
be
need to communicate
communicating
it. Yes, that's
Yep.
what we said was, it was, you know, communication was a big thing.
Yes, absolutely.
In lieu of saying, we're a CSC.
And of course, incentives, like you put in, that's gonna be huge, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
I have to go back and be like a dog with a bone. The energy, and my concern with the way the reference to our, right there. I believe it's Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee and no and.
You're correct.
And
I'm
there's a
sorry.
couple places where I finally got my two things together of what I was referring. There's another spot in there where there was an and. Yes, right there, right where you're at. And conservation, energy, environment.
Ah, I see.
See, that was my
I deleted
bugaboo.
the wrong end. I'm so sorry. It previously said Energy and Environment Conservation Committee, and I, reading it, just completely missed "and" the second time.
Yes, that's
I
okay.
apologize. Thank you for bringing that up again.
No, you will notice that I'm sorry, I don't let go of things sometimes.
No, please
so
don't be sorry. If it's incorrect, please correct it. Yes.
Either that or fix me, because that's what I've been referring
No,
to us
you-
as.
I obviously didn't catch the second "and," so thank you.
All the ands.
Well, the first "and" is correct.
Yes, no.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, are there any other comments on the letter? If not, we'll let Sarah and Matt.
We'll update it for the next meeting and
And-
ideally send out that update ahead of time for review.
We
Okay.
good with that? Okay.
Okay. Then I'm going to close that.
That
one.
moves us
Another
along
check mark.
to, check mark, yay. EPOD code, no, public tree law. Sorry about that. I reviewed the agenda and flipped everything around, so the agenda you have is different than my working copy, but that's, public tree law was next.
Okay. There it is. Can everyone read this, or would you like me to zoom in more? I think you had me at
Bigger.
125 last time.
Yeah. That help?
Great. So, my understanding is that all of the committee members have reviewed the comments and responses in red. Is there any committee member that would like to review those in detail at this meeting?
I think I
Seeing,
made some last minute comments just before.
if
Yeah, I
their
was gonna
comments
say, I
will go
don't
by,
think I
I think,
saw.
my hope is to go through the specific comments and not to read every detail of the, great, thank you. Seeing support, Pat has read and support staff, yep. Pat has read and is supportive. Steve and Katie gave the thumbs up.
Yeah, I don't know what the committee's position is on emojis, but I'm going to be using those in the Google Docs moving forward.
They're allowed.
Sounds
Okay.
great.
Okay, great.
As long as you're not sending random faces that no one knows what it means. Worst case, we'll ask for clarification.
Right, I reserve the right.
You may, you just might get questions.
And I didn't comment because I agreed with it, and I don't know if I need to state in there that I agree with it.
I did not either, so you are just fine.
You don't have to. I think the first comment separate from Matt's and mine that we worked together on was the one from Pat. And truthfully, that was helpful for staff to know that, like, someone's looking at it.
There was a note from Matt, I don't know that it was in the email that first sent the documents out, but something afterwards that said, to date, we can't see that anybody's looked at these. and it would be helpful if you do review them to go in and say reviewed and whether you agree or support. So that's why I was just, I'm a good little
It was
doobie, following
helpful.
directions.
That actually was, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago, Matt and I looked at it and didn't see any comments, and we just were like, how's the meeting gonna go?
Yes.
Where does the committee stand? And I think that email was sent out before Steve and Ari were part of this process.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't have that thought all on my own self, by myself.
Oh, you should have just claimed it.
I know I should have claimed it. I followed, but I,
Okay, so our first one is
So-
under,
So the first one refers to the forestry plan, and Matt pulled the definition from the public tree law for reference. Roy commented on that, and I think that's an appropriate place. For the town forestry plan would not be ready for a few years. I acknowledge the concerns raised. What if the tree law goes into effect and the town never gets around to developing the town forestry plan? How could we address this concern? Talking with town staff, realistically, the town board tells staff what their priority items are. So as long as the town board has a continuing interest for the town to pursue a forestry plan, then I personally would not have the concern that it wouldn't get done. With that, if the town approves a public tree law and then the town staff moves forward with the process of the town becoming a Tree City USA, then it's a requirement to have a forestry plan. So for the town to continue being a Tree City USA, then we would have to complete a forestry plan. That's not to say that it's not going to be 10 years. I obviously can't guarantee that. But that's just like I can't guarantee that anything's going to happen.
Sure. So I guess, so two thoughts. One is a lot of the responses in red referred back to the forestry plan.
Yep.
And so that's kind of like addressing the concern in the forestry plan that doesn't exist yet. So I understand the concern. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
you know, maybe that letter that you did last minute.
yes, that's what it basically talks about, is
Right.
that if they're agreeing to this as is, then they also need to be making the commitment to the forestry. That's one of multiple points, but that is one of the
Yeah.
points.
Right.
And although the staff responses are less detailed, and basically if it would be included in the forestry plan, maybe we should update our comments to acknowledge that the forestry plan is the proper location for that information to be provided. The town code is not.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
okay.
Okay.
And the
Could-
bottom line, the thought just to fill you in, the thought process behind that is when you, change this tree policy, it has to go through a rigorous process, and it's not, it's like amending the Constitution. It doesn't happen overnight. Yet if we update, the forestry plan may have things written in there along the lines of, we will follow such and such, help me, Sarah,
It would be town arboricultural
Yes.
specifications and standards
Yes.
of practice, things like conducting
Yes, and so
public tree
those could-
survey, planting trees, et cetera.
as something changed, like, oh, we're no longer planting elm trees because of Dutch elm disease, it's not written into a code that has to be changed, so it can spin more on a dime, let me say, to update as needed. And that takes care of not having to enact new codes.
Yeah, and that explanation is super helpful, and
There's
it sounds like,
there's another half to it, though.
Go ahead.
If you want to do, and that's the idea that we want a forestry plan, but it's going to take several years to do.
well,
And we want to put something in place now, but we don't want to, so we're kind of trying to do both at the same time, saying it'll be in the forestry plan, but here's what we've got to do now.
yeah, and I guess to that point, the only thing I would just suggest, and we could be incredibly flexible on this point, is what if we included some kind of a far-out deadline for having a forestry plan, so that there is a goal in place for having this critical document.
So that kind of thing isn't something that's included in town code.
Yeah, I was going to say, I
Like
don't
not-
think that's
But
a
it could be in
code
the
item.
letter.
It could be in a recommendation letter to the town board, and it could be something that the town board puts possibly in an adoption resolution. Because to adopt a public tree law, there would be a resolution. Like that would be, at this point, is the next step for the town board, is to adopt a resolution. If there are items that this committee wants to be included in a resolution, that is something that should be put in the letter that we're going to review next, that Cynette sent out today, and I did minor updates too, and just sent out like an hour before this meeting.
think
So you
it's
may
a-
not
I
have
know,
had a
was she
chance to
busy?
read that.
It's a great place to put in there, and I think it's a great, we should say that we need this forestry plan, and it needs to be in the adoption resolution. So it adds some weight or, some sort of commitment behind it, I guess. Versus just saying it's in the forestry plan, but there's nothing that says that you're gonna ever do this forestry plan other than we refer to it in the law and want to do it.
I agree.
Okay.
And Sarah, just the one follow-up question about how the town code doesn't have deadlines, is that like we want to avoid getting sued by someone who says you have to follow this deadline?
My understanding is, no, that's not the reasoning. My understanding is that the town code is supposed to be regulations for the town. So generally, when you're talking about goals, those aren't actually regulations or how you implement permitting or how you implement zoning. They're goals. They're kind of like, not stars in the sky, but they're what you're reaching for. So that it would be more appropriate for that to be included in a plan or resolution as a supportive document to the town code.
Interesting, yeah.
I mean, I always say, I talk about, well, there's policy, the town code, then there's application,
Yep.
which is
The plan.
the forestry plan and making sure the forestry plan happens, and those are two different things.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It's
That's the government aspect.
yeah, no, and I mean, I'm just thinking about like federal environmental laws, what are laws passed by Congress, where sometimes they say to EPA, you need to adopt blank regulation by X date, and that can be controversial for a lot of different reasons, but sometimes there can be good reasons for pushing to meet those kind of deadlines. And so it's not really a goal as much as it is a thou shalt.
So what happens if the town is setting a deadline for themselves and they don't meet it, and it's part of a law?
Just
Then
change the law.
the public gets to sue, and that's not good.
Right, well,
So-
I mean, that's, but I mean, that's the.
I mean, it's an honest question that
Yeah, no, I
I
mean,
don't have the
if
answer
you
to.
look at,
Is
like,
it that the
like
public sues?
Like CLICPA at the state level set like goals passed by their law that set, emission reduction goals. And so I think there's an interesting question, if the state doesn't meet those goals, what happens? Well, to me, that at least gets everybody on the same page. I'm not saying that the town should change how it approaches it.
Well,
I'm saying these are done in laws in
Oh, and I understand that,
these
but
contexts.
I can tell you, at least as a staff member, I would not recommend for the town to adopt a goal into the code, because if that doesn't happen, if the goal is not met, then my best understanding is that the town is now liable for not meeting that goal. So even if Joe down the street decides to sue the town, well, Katie down the street now has to help pay for that suit through her tax money. So as a staff member, that's not something that I would recommend. Does
Yeah.
that
No,
make sense?
It makes sense, and to me, it ultimately depends on what the goal is and how critical that is to the town. But yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Are you guys comfortable continuing on these comments?
We need to go ahead and keep going
Yeah.
here.
So improper pruning was included. Roy recommends not including subjective terms in code and support the response provided. That's a helpful comment, actually. Does anyone have anything on that? Seeing none.
So how would you deal with that? Because her comment was the black, right?
Her comment was the black, strengthening the definition of damage to include soil compaction, root cutting, and improper pruning. currently the definition does reflect soil compaction and root cutting. The suggested item of improper pruning, pruning standards would be outlined in our town arboricultural specifications. So as staff, we didn't feel it was appropriate to include improper pruning in the code.
So you guys are kind of in agreement.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
saying, I'm
I
saying
think-
that terminology, improper pruning, doesn't really
Yeah.
mean anything unless it's defined somewhere, so
Yeah.
it's kind of subjective. So I agree
Yeah.
with the response of not including improper pruning and referring back to the town.
Okay.
Arboricultural.
Arboricultural
Am I saying it wrong?
specifications.
Arboricultural?
I don't know, it's good
That's
enough.
our word, right?
Okay.
Arboricultural.
Sorry. So yes, my understanding was that that comment was supportive of the
Yes.
response. Matt, I thought gave a link, but I don't think that that link works. So the town's design and construction specifications can be found on the town website just for reference. He pulled the definition from the public tree law of town arboricultural specifications and standards of practice,
Okay, that's good if that.
just for reference. And then again for forestry plan. There were no further formal comments on this. Does anyone have additional comments on the staff responses to Mrs. Teglish's notes?
No.
Seeing none, I'd like to pull up the letter to the town board to adopt, and I'm gonna make it bigger, to adopt the public tree law. As I previously mentioned this earlier in the meeting, Cynette thankfully put together this letter. I just updated it to reflect kind of like town standards and have a conclusion. So if you'd like to read through
Okay,
it
so,
briefly
so
right
it
now,
seems
or-
to me, I mean, I feel like it's been forever since we've pushed forward our first draft of this law. So I would like to do something to, as I described, put a bow on it. We've kind of heard comments from a variety of the board members. I would like to have a letter go forth from us that says, can we do this? Will you make this happen for us? The gist of it is kind of in reference to some of the ongoing comments that we've had, which is what the first paragraph talks about, is as it's written, it codifies current practices and adds protections, specifically areas of authority and responsibilities, which we've been back and forth on several times, and how we manage that as we added some added depths to the roles. We talked about some other town organizations and people roles, not specifically people, to be included in that decision-making process, as well as protection for trees by documenting, asking the Public Works to document their best practices, as well as use recognized standards for tree care. So we have put those protections in there. And then what this public tree law does for us is gives the town the chance to provide recognition or seek recognition as the Tree City USA. And then this is where I started talking about the commitment for the forestry plan. So it sets the framework for the development of the forestry plan. And then kind of listed a couple things that I said are part of the forestry plan. Just as kind of, those are things that have also been referenced in comments, specifically that idea of trees of significance, public communication.
Please continue, sorry.
Yeah.
I also added at the end of that paragraph, based on comments, please consider including a time frame for completion of a forestry plan in an adoption resolution for adoption.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then,
Is it a resolution
Yeah.
versus an? Okay.
a resolution.
Um,
And then the third paragraph really talks about why we want the law now,
Oh,
and the idea that if they do want to wait for the forestry plan, what is the disadvantage of that? So that was kind of that purpose of the third paragraph there.
And then I just
It
added
looks like you tweaked some stuff to make it more official.
just a little bit.
It's okay. I'm impressed with how quickly you did this. So, given the
Thanks.
fact that I emailed it at 3:31, by 3:35, she had tweaked the letter and emailed it up to the.
I was already
Yeah.
working on comments, so that helps.
I was like, whoa.
I generally try to reserve the last half hour or hour before this meeting to work towards this meeting. And if I don't have extra work to do for it, I just pick up other work I have to do. So, for reference,
Yes.
it worked out today. So I did add this last paragraph, whether perfect or not, I will not say. But it's to acknowledge and attaching the responses to Town Board Person Linda Teglish's comments. I think that it's appropriate to include those responses, and that we have previously reviewed the comments from the previous public tree law public hearing that was completed
When,
in
should we say
2023.
Attached our responses versus.
Oh, the
our
responses
responded.
to questions, yeah.
Thanks. Like I said, I didn't think it was
Good catch.
perfect.
Still says, this says responds now. Responses, okay.
Thanks.
This is why you said you're not going to type during the meeting, so.
Yep. So attach our responses to questions from Town Board Person Linda Teglish and
Is it-
Would you say which have been addressed previously?
And is it,
I think we just need to, that needs to be a separate sentence.
and is it town board person or town board member?
Town Board Person is so like we do like chairperson. Cynette is the chairperson for this committee.
But everybody else is called
I
a
think,
member of
I
the
think you are
committee.
called persons, right? Or are you member?
It varies.
It's
A lot
both,
of the
right?
time I'm just councilman. Yeah, and sometimes I'm council person.
Oh,
So
let's
if you
do
just say-
council person then. That
Yeah.
seems more appropriate.
I think so.
Thanks for mentioning that. Is it one word or two?
Town council?
We'll sort that out.
So is it town council member? Is that what you do? Town council person, okay.
And it's usually one word.
Thanks.
Yeah. I always just go by chair, so I don't even worry about any of the other words after.
Oh, I see what you're trying to say in the second sentence,
So, yeah.
that they've already been responded
They've already
to
been responded.
previously.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're
It
not
makes it
included
better
in
as a
this.
second sentence,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And then just to simply, please review these responses and take appropriate steps toward adoption of
Adopting.
that sounds great, adopting the public tree law. And then, like I said, I would do it on behalf of the committee, assuming the committee is
Okay.
supportive. And the spacing is going to change based on putting on the town seal.
Could you go back up in
Yeah.
towns, energy and environmental, and take off the second "and" from?
How did
Sure
that
can.
get there? Oh,
There's
you did that. I
there's
didn't,
two,
I know I
um,
didn't do that.
I think I copied it from the other
Yeah, I was
document.
gonna say, well, you're consistent.
Okay.
It's
And-
both on the "from" section and
And
also the
the
first
first letter.
Yep,
paragraph.
I literally copied it from the letter that we've already discussed at this
Okay,
meeting.
that's okay. It's like, oh, she's
good.
consistently.
That is what happens when I'm doing things 30 minutes before a meeting.
It just made me think that I had it wrong, so that's,
Nope, you are correct.
Okay.
It's energy and environmental
So just, I would
conservation committee.
say, just make sure you give it a lovely read over.
And Matt will too, when
Yes.
he's back in town.
That's good. I think
We
that's good.
we
Do
appreciate
we-
proofing each other's work.
Do we need a motion or anything to
I
make
think that would
one
be
happen?
appropriate.
Okay.
I move that we adopt Cynette's letter of recommendation to the town board for adapting.
It would be appropriate to, and I'm sorry that I have to do it this way. It would be appropriate to recommend for the committee to recommend the town board adopt the public tree law, and for the committee to provide this letter of support.
Like I'm gonna,
You can say
So
what
moved.
I said. Yep, that's fine. Matt will document it
What she
correctly in the
said.
minutes.
I'll second what she said.
Thanks, sorry.
my memory only extends to the first three words.
Any other discussion or comments on this? If not, can I have a vote? I'll say aye if in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. This is
Great.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
Okay.
for your patience.
We now are at the 10-minute mark. This is a warning here for us. We still have left a review of the EPOD code, but this is just an update on the EPOD code. Do we want to push that to the next one? Do we have any action items that it
It's just
impacts?
So I
comments.
think this one will be really, really quick.
Okay, then let's
And
go
then-
for it.
And then I think we can keep going.
I believe I had
um,
2 minutes allocated for it.
This is, I just pulled up the document, staff responses to town board EPOD comments. I'll make it bigger. And the only, oh no, there are more. I must have missed yours, Roy. Oh,
It was late, sorry.
okay. I take back what I said. I don't think we're going to have time to review these comments at this meeting, as disappointing as that might be tonight. And that's because we have a cutoff of 6 p.m.
Yes, we do.
Because there's the other public hearing tonight.
Well, let's get through the rest of it, and then we'll see if there is a chance that we do.
I
Not
think
that-
that's perfect.
Okay.
I would like to interject something.
Yeah, please.
The public hearing on this was held last night at the board meeting, and no one spoke.
There were no comments.
Okay.
At the public hearing. So my current understanding is that this is the only item that's missing from the town board at this point for that,
Okay.
for the EPOD code.
Okay. And I have not reviewed anybody else's comments yet, so
I have not, at the time that I looked at it, there weren't any other comments.
They must have come in late in the day because I reviewed this document twice already today. So we'll have to get to them. But I think like Cynette said, I think we should at this point,
go to new business. If so,
Yes.
let's work on the Renewable Energy Systems Code.
I was hoping, is it okay if we go through upcoming events first?
Sure, let's do
Do you
that.
mind?
No, I
Because
don't
I
mind.
think both of the code documents are going to take longer.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't,
Um,
We can do that.
So, pull that over here.
Upcoming events.
I would like, Cynette, would you start while I pull up a website to review? You don't
Okay,
have it,
so
do
the
you?
one, you're going to have to make that way bigger.
I
for
know,
me.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to bring my other glasses next time, just in case. Okay, so the first one I wanted to make sure got noted was that the Monroe County and Eco Park is helping us host the municipal hazardous waste collection on September 14th. And this is the one, it does require appointments, but
That's
it will
correct.
be held in Penfield. Is it across the street?
It will be held in Penfield at the DPW, is my understanding.
Okay.
And
That's on
yes, the
Jackson.
DPW is Jackson Road.
Okay.
Technically across the street, like diagonal. And then I was
So
gonna-
we'll make sure that the links for getting to the Eco Park registration for this are included
in the minutes?
in the minutes, or
And-
in the,
So
Oh,
they're
can we
already on
append?
the town website.
okay,
So if you are looking for links, you can go to the Eco Park website for appointment scheduling, or you can go to the town website and follow the link to the Eco Park website. I don't think that it would be beneficial to include it in the minutes.
Okay.
Because the minutes.
no, it would come out later than that. No, I meant
Yeah.
just from the public perspective. Okay, yes, go on the website.
Then, again, because we're looking at tight timing, Katie was going to discuss some items. If you tell me the page number, I'll pull those up.
29. Oh, actually, let's go to the first. Okay, so Color Penfield Green has a few classes coming up this fall, and you can find out a lot more information in the Penfield Recreation Catalog. The first one that's coming up is September 19th, Garden Worthy Native Plants by Healthy Yards Monroe County, or Healthy Yards Penfield. And then as part, thank you, this is the correct page for our Clean Energy
Okay.
Communities campaign. Clean Heat, Cool Savings, followed by EV 101, Your Guide to Electric Vehicles. It's a two-part class in October. And there are other classes from Color Penfield Green, but we'll talk about those another time.
Sounds great.
So basically, check out the most recent rec brochure, because it's got great stuff in it.
It's the Fall 2024 program brochure, which you can find on the Penfield Rec website.
Good. Okay. Do we have any other new business?
I have something, it wasn't specifically in the minutes, and I just happened to be looking at my handwritten notes from last time. We did talk about that, the letter for why we're not recommending pursuit of CSC, that we should, embark or make mention of some sort of media campaign to recognize and celebrate the actions the town is completing. I'm reading from the minutes. And I had a handwritten note on my own notes that next meeting, which would have been today, that we should brainstorm ideas for a media campaign.
Okay, let's add that to the next agenda. We'll make sure that we capture that one.
What's this look?
We can add that to the next agenda. We won't be able to do
We
that
can't do
today.
that now.
I know,
Sorry.
no, I'm not advising, I'm just, I like to say what we shouldn't be forgetting, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It would be nice, probably, if we were going to do that, to invite the communication
I think
person
that'd be
to join
appropriate.
us for that.
Yeah.
Great.
So I cannot guarantee that they are available for the next meeting, but I think it would be an appropriate item to add when they can attend the meeting.
Absolutely, it's not something that is time sensitive at this point.
Okay. Okay, so we have 3 minutes, 2.5. What do we want to accomplish? Is there,
So I will provide a recommendation and the committee can make a decision. With there only being 3 minutes, I don't think that we reasonably have enough time to go through the 2 documents we have with comments, which are the EPOD code and the Renewable Energy Systems Code. Those are still important documents that we do need to move forward with and take actions on. My recommendation would be to, at this point, table them until next meeting, just because I think we need to dedicate more than 3 minutes towards either of
Absolutely.
them.
I
Do
agree with
committee
that.
members feel any differently?
Do we have any time obligations with either of them?
Yes, are we slowing you
Obligations?
down? Are we slowing
No.
you down?
Well, you're not slowing me down.
Okay.
Not you specifically, but the town.
Realistically, if we moved the EPOD responses forward and were able to push them back to the town board could possibly adopt the EPOD code next month. I am not aware if they feel they're ready to, so I can't say that that's going to cause any delays or not.
What about with the Renewable Energy Systems Code?
So my understanding is that the town board is aware that this committee is reviewing that document. When we are looking at the timeline for adoption of the Renewable Energy Code, we have acknowledged that we're looking to move that forward as soon as possible so that the town board can remove the moratorium on commercial solar and certain residential solar. So that is like a time constraint, but at the same time, in that time, in that schedule that we presented to them, we gave this committee a minimum of 2 meetings to review that document, just because I felt that would be necessary with our workload.
Okay.
So
good.
no, my understanding is that we're not delaying that.
Okay. In that case,
Considering the expertise of our 2 new members, I'm really excited that we have a
yes.
little bit more
This will give
time.
you a chance to really kind of take a look at some of those, or both of those. So I think.
Yeah, I
that'll be-
included comments, and I was just like, I learned what an EPOD was like 2 days ago. So
Yes.
Well, this will give you some more time to review things. I will let you know, generally, when staff sends out that type of document to the committee members, we ask that, if possible, committee members can provide comments 2 weeks before the meeting, because that gives staff time to review it together and reach out to other appropriate staff members to be able to provide adequate and full answers or responses to committee members. So if you've looked at it between 3 and 4 o'clock today, you will likely have seen that I did provide some answers, but I did not answer all of your questions or comments.
Did you say 2 weeks or 2 hours?
2
Yeah,
weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, I was
is-
like, I
it
did,
is
I
6
did mine
o'clock.
Tuesday.
So if there isn't anything else that we really need to cover right now, I would like to call this meeting.
Oh,
of
wait,
the-
one item.
One item.
The
Oh,
next meeting.
The next meeting is September 12th.
Same time, same
Same
place.
time, same place, same crew. So at this point in
Plus
time.
Matt.
Yes, plus Matt.
I would like to call the August meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee adjourned for today.